All right, your next witness.
Plaintiff calls Douglas Bania, Your Honor.
Okay, can you spell that last name for me?
B-A-N-I-A.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I approach for just a moment?
Okay, sure. Mr. Nadelhaft.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case for penalty of law?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bania. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, Douglas Bania.
And Mr. Bania, what do you do for work?
I am an intellectual property damages and valuation expert.
Do you have any particular specialty in your line of work?
Yes, my specialty is using internet and social media analysis when I'm quantifying value, or I'm calculating damages, or if I'm analyzing the impact of social media or internet events.
Where do you work?
I work at Nevium, which is located in San Diego, California.
How long have you worked there?
10 years.
What's your position?
I'm a founding principal and an analyst.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your educational background for a moment. Where did you attend college?
I received my bachelor's degree in cinema from San Diego State University. I graduated in 1997.
And after you graduated in 1997, did you pursue another degree?
Yes, I went directly to San Diego State University. I got a master's degree in television, film, new media production.
Was there any particular reason you chose to go to San Diego State for that?
The new media production side of that program I really liked. I graduated from there in 2000, so this is even before YouTube was found. So the whole idea of putting film on the internet and kind of analyzing the internet and using analytic tools to see how things are doing on the internet that's what attracted me, and that's what I learned there as well.
What did you do after you got your master's degree?
After the master's degree, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was an independent filmmaker for a while. Then I got introduced to intellectual property, and I started working for a small boutique IP firm back in San Diego.
What was the boutique firm you went to?
What was the name of the firm?
Yes.
The name of the firm was Consor.
And what did Consor do?
Consor values intellectual property for various business reasons. They do litigation support services as well.
And when you say intellectual property, what do you mean?
When I talk about intellectual property, I'm mostly talking about copyrights, patents, and trademarks. I might include related intangible assets such as domain names, websites, internet accounts. But IP for me is mostly brands, publicity rights, copyrights, trademarks.
What type of work did you do while you were at Consor?
I have various positions there, but I was a research analyst as a financial analyst. I was a director of business development. My last position there was a principal.
And what kinds of things did you work on?
We worked on, valuation. Our clients, they needed valuation of their IP portfolio for maybe tax or estate reasons. A lot of litigation support like I'm doing now. Somebody infringes on a trademark or publicity rights. That's actually the place I got my first expert witness job. I was a named expert on a right of publicity case representing the retired players of the NFL. against the NFL. They're using their name and likeness without permission. So services such as that.
How long did you work at Consor?
I was at Consor for 10 years.
And after Consor, where did you work?
Then at Nevium, where I am now.
And did you found Nevium?
Yes.
What kind of work does Nevium do?
Nevium does several things, provides several services. We value intellectual property for various reasons: tax, estate, M&A, business transactions. We not only provide the value of a business, but we can break that value. What percent of the value is this trademark portfolio or this patent portfolio? We do litigation support. So like I'm here, I testify in cases, maybe a false endorsement case. Somebody uses a celebrity's name and likeness without permission. Maybe there's a trademark infringement case. You used a brand without permission. A defamation case such as this. What's the impact of something that was posted online? So the third kind of bucket of services we offer is brand monetization strategies. So I think the best way to explain that is companies have business plans, they have marketing plans, they don't have IP plans. So we come in and work with customers, with our clients, understand their business and their marketing plans, and help them build an IP plan that fits in with those two so they can essentially make more money off their branded products and services. And I think what's important with all that is, what differentiates us with competitors is we use internet and website analytic tools and everything we do. Everything is online now, and understanding those tools when calculating value or calculating damages is important.
Do you have any professional certifications?
I am a certified licensing professional. That is a designation given by the Licensing Executive Society. LES. LES is a not-for-profit organization that supports professionals like me who deal with a lot of licensing. I'm a Google Analytics individual. I have a Google Analytics individual qualification. That is a test given by Google for those that understand and pass a test related to internet analytics.
Can you explain a little bit about what Google Analytics is?
Yeah, so Google Analytics is a web service provided by Google, and it's used by business owners and website owners to understand the traffic that comes to their websites. So essentially, once you sign up for your Google Analytics account, you're given a bit of code, and you embed that code into various your web pages. Then you can log in and you can see who's coming to my website, what are they doing. And really, it's essentially a tool for search engine optimization. The goal of the web is to show up number one in Google Organic. So then you'll tweak your website a bit. You'll look at your analytics, see if you're showing up on the first page of Google. If not, you can use those analytics to keep playing around and try to end up on the first page of Google.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
I'm a member of the International Trademark Association. That is an organization. They're actually having their annual conference here in DC, so I'm popping back and forth to that. I'm on their right of publicity panel. I just gave a presentation on Monday. I'm a non-attorney member of the American Bar Association. I'm on their Copyright and Social Media Committee.
Your Honor, at this point, plaintiff would offer Mr. Bania as an expert in internet and social media analytics.
All right, any objection? No, Your Honor. All right, so moved. Thank you.
Mr. Bania, what were you asked to do in this case?
I was asked to analyze the impact of the allegations of domestic abuse made by Ms. Heard as it relates to her 2016 restraining order, and then asked to also analyze the republication of that alleged abuse in her 2018 Washington Post op-ed.
What work have you done in connection with forming your opinions relative to that?
So I identified the best tools to use in this case, which are Q-scores, Google Trends, and historic Google search results.
You used a few terms in there. I just want to break them down a little bit. What's a Q-score?
A Q-score is, there's a Q-score company that's been around for about 50 years, and what they do is they measure how well a brand or a celebrity or sports character is known and how much they're liked, and they also measure how much they're disliked.
Who else besides you uses Q-scores?
Q-scores are used by, any company that, organizations that license in a celebrity or a brand to endorse their product or service. The PGA Golf Tour is actually using Q-scores right now. They're using Q-scores in Google search results. They have a pool of $40 million that they're doling out to their players. So depending on their Google search results and their Q-scores and other metrics, I'm sure, they're using those to divide up that pool of money.
And I think you also mentioned Google Trends. What's that?
Yeah, Google Trends is another service offered by Google. As we know, everything starts with a Google search these days. There's 5 billion daily searches on Google. And Google Trends allows a user like me or you to go into Google Trends and analyze search traffic for various key terms, anything you really want. Maybe there's a new football player and you want to see how that football player is trending compared to the team over time, or maybe something related to Ukraine, or maybe a celebrity. So Google Trends just shows you what kind of search volume is happening during various points of time.
What are historical Google search results?
So historical Google search results are using Google. There's actually an area where you can go back in time and see what was showing up in Google during that time. And it's really the best indication of what websites would have appeared back in time. Oftentimes, working with my monetization clients, we want to know, hey, how were you ranking years ago for your branded service or your branded company? It will go back in time and look, and then in litigation, we're always going back in time, so we want to figure out what was most likely happening, what websites were served back then. And when you know what websites were served back then, you typically know what people were reading and thinking about.
Why did you choose these particular tools for your analysis in this case?
Well, the Q-scores, I really thought it was the best idea to understand Mr. Depp's Q-scores right before 2016, before the abuse allegations, just to see where he was at. Then I wanted to see his Q-scores right after the 2016 alleged abuse allegations. And then I wanted to see his Q-scores after the 2018 Washington Post op-ed, just to see if there was any changes during that period of time.
And what about your decision to use Google Trends and historical Google search results?
Yeah, I felt that those two tools together were perfect, because what I wanted to do is understand, as I mentioned, everyone's going to Google to figure things out. What were people, when people Googled Johnny Depp prior to these alleged abuse allegations, what websites were coming up and what was the public consuming about him? Then I wanted to know that after, and then after the op-ed. So I used Google Trends just to identify the dates in time, in which then I went into the historic Google search results. I searched for Mr. Depp, and then I changed those dates to go back in time, and then I analyzed the top 3 websites of each search.
Based on the analysis you did in this case, have you formed any opinions?
Yeah, my analysis shows that prior to 2016 and the allegations, the abuse allegations, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in a negative connotation. That's the first thing that I identified.
Did you form any other conclusions?
I realized that those websites that were coming up were mostly about his career, his characters, Johnny Depp as the individual, his interests. Then after the 2016 mark, the majority of those results turned into negative things about the abuse allegations. And then even more so after the op-ed, there seemed to be kind of a theme or a flavor of not only the abuse allegations, but his drinking and drug use. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Bania, have you prepared a demonstrative that depicts how you used Google Trends in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like permission to approach. I have hard copies. Bania demonstrative A. And just for the record, we've marked these as plaintiffs 1236 for identification.
1236 for identification. Do you want to publish it to the jury?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And Mr. Bania, can you explain for the jury what is depicted in this demonstrative that you prepared?
Yes. So this is the Google Trends data. You're going to see that it runs from 2004 into 2020, and you're going to notice the different spikes. Those spikes represent when people were searching for Mr. Depp. You're going to also notice here, I've got the red line just showing the date when Ms. Heard filed the restraining order. Oh, can I write on this thing?
You can touch the screen, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, so here I'm talking about, in this line here, is just the date and time in which Ms. Heard alleged the abuse and filed the restraining order. And then this line here is the December 18th, 2018 op-ed. And what I wanted to do is identify the peaks of interest in Mr. Depp. And you're going to notice here, I found 17 spikes of interest that I analyzed. And then the 51 key web pages we're going to get into later, I analyzed the top 3 search results for each spike. And then here I analyzed the 7 spikes after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and then again after the December 18th, 2018 op-ed.
Once you determined these spikes, the periods of significant interest in searches for Johnny Depp on Google, what did you do with that information?
So, again, the purpose of using Google Trends was just to understand when there's the most interest in Johnny Depp, because for some reason something was going on in the news, in the media, people are turning to Google to search for Mr. Depp. So then I went to my web browser, and then I searched for Johnny Depp in Google. But before I did so, I have a separate web browser. I call it my Workbench browser. I don't log into anything. It's important to be logged out of Google because Google keeps a profile on you. and your search results could be biased based on that profile. Then also when you go into a web browser, you have to clear your cache, you have to clear your history, clear all your data, and make sure you can get the most unbiased search results as possible. So I went into Google, I typed in Johnny Depp, and then I searched and set the time periods for the various points here that you see labeled with letters.
Do you have a demonstrative that shows an example of one of those points that you examined?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, could we go to the second Bania demonstrative, please?
Yeah, so this is an example of, I believe it was spike or point O in the Google Trends. So what I did is I went into Google, I cleared everything as I told you, made sure I was logged out of Google, and here you're going to see I typed in Johnny Depp, I hit the search, and then what I did is went to this tool area, which pulls a drop-down area for the date, and I set the date to match the Google Trends spike of November of 2004. Then we had these top 3 websites that came up. I downloaded those websites and then I analyzed them.
So did you undertake this analysis for each of the 17 points on the prior slide that we looked at?
Yes, correct.
And what did you do once you had your web page results, such as on this demonstrative?
You mean when I reviewed each web page?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was looking for is, were these web pages or articles, did they have anything to do with the alleged abuse? Did they have anything to do with his alcohol, drug use? Did they have anything to do with his work ethic? So I basically, tried to understand, the content and of each website or article.
Did you look at all of the results that turned up when you ran these historical searches?
I only reviewed the top 3.
Why did you choose the top 3?
So I reviewed the top 3 because research shows that about 50 to 75% of the people only click on the top 3. So I wanted to get the majority of the searches.
Tom, I think we can take that down for now. Thank you. What did you determine about the results that you found for the period prior to Ms. Heard's first allegations of abuse?
So I determined that, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in any negative connotation. The web results were about his life and his career, his acting, his, pictures of him, relationships he was in, just pretty normal stuff.
And what did you determine about the top results after Ms. Heard's initial allegations in 2016 and then the republication in the op-ed in 2018?
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Bania, what did you find about the results of the top web pages that you determined after Ms. Heard's initial allegations and then again after the publication of the op-ed?
Yeah, so after the initial allegations in 2016, I found that the majority of them had to do with the alleged abuse. And then after I realized that the web pages that were dealing with the alleged abuse then started talking about is drinking and drinking and doing drugs. So it appeared to me that they became negative after 2016, but then after 2018, they even included the alleged abuse, but also included the drinking and drug use.
Did you form any opinions about the results that didn't refer to the allegations of abuse?
That didn't? I formed an opinion that, I'm not following your question, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we can move on. Did any of the results that you analyzed refer to Mr. Depp's work ethic?
No.
Did you form Any overall opinions about the results in the web pages that you looked at following Ms. Heard's accusations of abuse?
Yes, as I stated, prior to 2016, the web pages were just about his daily life and career. After the 2016 marker point, they tended to include, the majority of them included, the allegations of abuse. And then after the 2018 op-ed, the ones that included the allegations of abuse were also talking about drinking and drug use.
What was your overall view of the connotation of those results then?
Yeah, so Mr. Depp was portrayed in a negative connotation after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and even more so after the 2018.
You mentioned you also looked at Q scores as part of your analysis. How are Q scores calculated?
Yeah, so Q scores, it's a survey of 1,800 people that happens twice a year. What they do is it's internet-based, and they measure how well a celebrity or a brand is known, how much they're liked, and how much they're disliked. Q scores, include sports figures, celebrities, even cartoon characters, brands. So that's how the scoring system works.
Do you have a demonstrative that reflects the Q score analysis that you prepared?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, could we have demonstrative C, please? And Mr. Bania, what does this tell us about the Q score analysis that you completed?
Yeah, so what this is saying, again, these spikes are the Google trends that you've already seen, but what I've overlaid are his Q scores shown in the red, green, and purple area. And as you recall, I wanted to find out his Q score prior to the allegations of abuse in 2016, where he had a positive Q score of 11 and a negative Q score, a positive Q score of 35 and a negative Q score of 11. And then I looked at the Q scores after, and then after the op-ed.
And what did you determine about those Q scores?
Yeah, so what you can see here, his positive Q score, which is represented in red, was a 35, and that was prior to the alleged abuse and the restraining order. And then after that, his Q score, positive Q score, dropped to a 31. And what that's saying is less people liked him after the date of the 2016 alleged abuse. And then his negative Q score went up from an 11 to a 16, which is telling you that more people disliked him during that time frame.
And what did you find about the final Q scores that you looked at for Mr. Depp?
Yeah, then you can see the Q score C that I have there in purple. His positive Q score went from a 31 to a 29. His negative Q score went from a 16 to a 15. So now his positive Q score dropped again from a 31 to a 29, meaning less people had a positive impression of Mr. Depp. And then his negative Q score did go from a 16 to a 15, so not as many people disliked Johnny during that time frame.
What are your overall opinions about the Q scores that you analyzed?
So my overall opinions are, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to analyze the Q scores during this snapshot of time. I wanted to understand what they were before, during, and after the op-ed. And what this tells me is his positive Q score went from a 35 to a 29, and then his negative went from an 11 to a 15. So what the Q scores is telling me is the public perception of Mr. Depp has been damaged. They like him less and they dislike him more.
Based on all of the analyses that you completed in this case, what are your final opinions about Mr. Depp's reputation over this period of time?
Yeah, so my opinions are that, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in a negative connotation prior to the 2016 allegations of abuse. And then Mr. Depp's image, he was portrayed in a negative connotation after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and then more so after the 2018 Washington Post op-ed. And then the Q scores represent that, the public thinks he's damaged. They think less likely of him. His positive Q score has gone down, and they don't like him even more because his negative Q score went from the 11 to the 15.
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess of 15 minutes. Do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research. Just stay right there for a second, sir. All right, cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bania.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Bania, you understand that this case is about the op-ed in December of 2018, correct?
I understand this case to be about the allegations of domestic abuse, both as it relates to the 2016 and the republication of that, and the 2018 Washington Post op-ed.
You understand that Mr. Depp is only suing Amber about the op-ed from December 2018, correct?
My understanding is, I can base my understanding on my analysis, which includes the 2016 allegations of abuse.
That's your analysis, but do you understand what Mr. Depp is suing Amber for in this case?
Objection, Your Honor, to the extent it calls for a legal conclusion.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Did you read the complaint in this case?
Yes.
Did you understand that Mr. Depp was only suing for the op-ed, about the op-ed?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Depp was not suing Amber in this case from his complaint about the accusation she made in 2016, correct?
That is my understanding.
And you're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus how it was impacted when Ms. Heard filed for divorce in 2016, correct?
That is not correct.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Bania, you took a deposition in this case,
Yes, I did.
and I was asking you the questions in that case. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you took that deposition on March 21st, 2022?
That is correct.
Okay. And you were under oath at the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were under oath to tell the truth, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you turn to page 83 of your transcript, which is on the 21st page of the...
I'm here?
Okay, and you see line 9?
Yes.
And I asked you, are you able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed versus how it was impacted by when Ms. Heard filed for divorce? And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom when a Sun writer called Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
Are you still reading from my deposition?
No, I'm asking you a question now.
Please repeat that.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom when a Sun writer called Mr. Depp a wife beater.
Objection, compound, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom, correct?
My analysis shows that the web documents that I reviewed after the 2018 allegations.
Respectfully, this is a yes or no.
got worse.
This is a yes or no question.
Please repeat the question.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom.
That was not part of my analysis to carve that out.
And you didn't You were not able to separate it, correct?
I didn't try to.
Okay, and so you couldn't?
I didn't try it.
Okay. And you understand that the article Mr. Depp sued the Sun over had the headline that said, "How can J.K. Rowling be genuinely happy casting wife-beater Johnny Depp in the new Fantastic Beasts film," correct?
I don't recall if that's one of the articles I reviewed.
Do you know if that article came out before Ms. Heard's op-ed?
I don't know.
Now, you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's career, correct?
Repeat that, please.
You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's career.
Correct.
Okay. And you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's reputation.
What I'm doing is
It's a yes or no. Are you offering an opinion to that or not?
My opinion is related to his public image.
You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's reputation, correct?
I am not talking exactly about his reputation, correct?
And you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's public image, correct?
I mean, I'm offering an opinion that after the 2018
It's a yes or
his
no,
public
sir.
image.
It's a yes or no. You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's public image.
I am.
Turn to your deposition transcript, please. And if you go to page 74, which is on page 19. And you see line, are you there?
Yes.
You see line 1, starting on line 1. I asked you, and you're not going to testify how the December 2018 op-ed impacted Mr. Depp's public image. Answer, that's correct. That was your testimony at the time, correct?
Okay. Well,
That was
Johnny
your answer
Depp's
at the time, correct?
perception is
Sir,
a
that was
negative
your answer at the
perception.
time, correct?
Okay. Yes.
And that was your answer on March 21st, 2022, correct?
Yes, the date of the deposition.
So that was a month and a half ago,
Right.
correct? Okay. And you're not offering an opinion as to whether the op-ed from Ms. Heard made Mr. Depp more hireable or less hireable, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As to the articles that came up in the Google searches that you spoke about, it was you made the determination whether the articles had a, quote, negative connotation or not, right?
Correct.
And so that's just your view if an article had a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, that's my opinion that they had a negative connotation.
All right. So if an article criticizes Mr. Depp's acting, for example, you're not considering that article as having a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, correct?
Repeat that, please.
So if an article criticizes Mr. Depp's acting, you're not considering that article as having a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in your analysis of Google spikes, the highest spike in searches for Mr. Depp was in January 2004, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I guess you guys have it. Can you put up the demonstrative 1236? It's published. And can you see that, Mr.
Yes.
Bank? Can we make it just a little bit bigger? Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, A is where the most searches were conducted for Johnny Depp, correct?
Correct.
And that's from January 2004, correct?
Correct.
So that was 18 years ago?
Correct.
Okay. And that was when Ms. Heard was 18 years old?
I don't know.
Okay. The top spike you mark as 100, correct?
I did not mark that, but Google Trends identified that spike as 100.
And where it says 100, you don't know how many people actually searched for Johnny Depp at that point, correct?
Well, the Google Trends algorithm marks the highest point of search as 100, and then everything is compared to that as a ratio or a percent. So if you notice that A is 100, everything else is lower than that because everything is being compared to that highest point.
Right, so you don't know how many people actually did the search for Johnny Depp in January 2004, correct?
Correct.
It could be 100 or it could be 1 million, right?
I don't know.
And you don't know if it's actually human beings doing these searches, correct?
As opposed to
bots or something like that.
I did not do an analysis to determine if it was a bot or a human being, but Google Trends is a tool that's going to show you during a time frame the highest point of search interest as 100.
Okay. But you don't know if it's humans, bots, my cat doing the searches, correct?
Objection asked and answered, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question.
Now, in all of these Google spikes, Ms. Heard's op-ed never came up as one of the top 3 searches in any of the Google spikes, correct?
Well, that is correct because Google Trends is based on a search of a word or a name. And because Mr. Depp's name was not mentioned in that op-ed, Google Trends did not pick that up.
So a person does a search for Johnny Depp and the op-ed doesn't come up, correct?
In my analysis, the op-ed did not come up.
Okay. And in fact, the red dotted line all the way to the right, that shows when the op-ed was published on December 18th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the searches are actually going down right after the red line, correct?
As opposed to the searches in 2004?
No. Look at the red line, look at the red dotted line, and you have two points here, right there. Those go down from the time of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the next, I guess, spike happens in March of 2019, correct? Right there.
Yes.
And do you know that it was March of 2019 when Mr. Depp sued Amber Heard in this case?
No, I didn't look at that date.
Right. You didn't look at any articles for this bullet, correct?
That's correct.
And since Ms. Heard's op-ed came out on December 18th, 2018, you would agree with me that by definition, all the spikes you analyzed before December 18, 2018 could not have been caused by the op-ed, right?
Correct.
So articles about Mr. Depp's drug use before December 2018 could not have been caused by the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you, in this chart, analyze only 2 spikes after the op-ed, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And the first spike you analyzed after December 2018 is V, correct?
Yes.
And is that January 2020?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. So that's January 2020 is over a year after the op-ed by Ms. Heard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the next spike you analyzed was T, correct?
Yes.
And that was in approximately July 2020?
Correct.
Okay, so that was a year and a half after Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, none of the articles, and then for V and T, if I understand it, you then analyze the top 3 searches that came up, or the top 3 websites that came up after a search?
Correct.
Okay. And none of the articles you analyzed in those Google spikes after the op-ed were the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the headlines of the articles over a year after the op-ed that you analyzed were about Mr. Depp suing the Sun in the UK for a Sun writer calling Mr. Depp a wife beater?
You would have to pull those articles back up. I don't have those in front of me.
Isn't it true that the article, so, and just so I understand it, V and T, that would mean there were 6 articles, correct, that you analyzed?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it true that the article on February 26, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp's disturbing alleged text messages read aloud in court as libel lawsuit begins?
Again, I don't have that article in front of me. I did produce those as part of my analysis. I don't have that in front of me, if you'd like to show it to me.
And you understand that that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, not about the op-ed, correct?
Again, I did not have that in front of me.
And another article that came up on February 27th, 2020 is one of the top 3 hits when you search for Johnny Depp. What the headline was, quote, let's burn Amber, text allegedly sent by Johnny Depp about X read in court.
I mean, if you want to talk about these articles, we need to bring them up.
This is your opinion. You don't recall what articles you analyzed?
I mean, there's a lot of articles here. I didn't memorize each title.
There were 6 articles that you
Okay.
analyzed in the almost 2 years after the op-ed.
All right, can you bring those up and we can talk about them?
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Hollywood nervously awaits fallout from explosive Johnny Depp trial. You don't recall one way or the other whether that was one of the articles in either V or T?
Again, I know if you want to bring up my documents, I know document 9J, 9O, 9K, and 9M are mentioning the op-ed. Again, I don't have those in front of me.
And when you say mentioning the op-ed, does that mean that it just references that Mr. Depp sued Amber Heard in Fairfax?
No, it talks about how he's alleged to have abused her as it relates to the op-ed.
Doesn't it say, I mean, another headline from July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Hollywood nervously awaits fallout from explosive Johnny Depp trial?
Objection asked and answered.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
You understood that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, correct?
Objection asked and
I
answered.
didn't ask about that.
Overruled.
Again, I would like to talk about these articles, but I need to see them.
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, all the nasty bits of the UK trial, and it's all nasty. That was in point T, correct?
Again, I do not have that list in front of me. If you'd like to bring that up, we could talk about it.
And you understood that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, correct?
I do not.
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp claims in the Sun he beat ex-wife, complete lies, court told. That was the quote, correct?
I don't see that here.
That was in your report, correct?
I would have to look at the documents again. I would be happy to discuss them if you would bring those up.
And then you previously had a chart that had articles from November 2020, correct?
I'm sorry, say that?
You previously had a chart that included articles from November 2020, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach on
Okay,
it?
sure.
You understood it was Mr. Depp's decision to sue the Sun, correct?
I don't know. That's not part of my analysis.
Now, you talked about Q scores in your direct testimony, correct?
Correct.
And you testified about 3 particular Q scores for Mr. Depp, right?
3 periods of time are the Q scores that I analyzed.
And you're not offering an opinion as to why Mr. Depp's Q scores changed, correct?
That's correct.
And Q scores can go up and down for actors for any sort of reason, correct?
That's possible.
You recall testifying that they could go up and down for any sort of reason in your deposition.
Yeah, they can go up and down for many different reasons.
So you're not offering an opinion that Mr. Depp's Q scores were damaged because of Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
And in comparing the Q scores from before the op-ed to the Q scores after the op-ed, Mr. Depp's Q scores dropped by 2 points, correct?
I don't have those Q scores in front of me, but if you're looking at them, I believe.
We can show the third page of this demonstrative.
What was your question, please?
Mr. Depp's positive Q scores from B to C dropped by 2 points, correct?
Yes,
You're not an expert on statistics, correct?
correct.
And even though you're not an expert, you have an idea about what the term statistically significant means, correct?
Yes,
And statistical significance is a measure of whether your findings are meaningful, right?
yes, I don't think you need statistics to understand Q scores.
And you don't know if there's any significance to a drop in 2 points in positive Q score, correct?
Well, there absolutely is. When you're ordering Q scores on points at a time.
Mr. Bania, go to your deposition, page 113, which is on 29.
Okay,
At 10, page 113, line 10, it says, so you're not offering an opinion as to the significance of a change in Q score, correct? Answer, correct.
well, you're talking about statistically a difference. What I'm talking about is how we use Q scores in the industry. When you see a Q score dropping from a 31 to a 29, there's an issue. Is this somebody you really want to hire to endorse your products or your service? No, you probably not. You want to look into why, what is going on in the public to make these Q scores drop like that.
And you don't know exactly the significance between 5 or 6 points of drop in Q score, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, and it shows here that Mr. Depp's negative Q score actually got better from point B to point C, correct?
Correct.
So that's actually better for Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you understand that Dr. Alan Jacobs reviewed your opinions in this case?
Yes.
And you understand that Dr. Jacobs reviewed additional Q score data, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can we please put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 889 at 117? Mr. Bania, do you understand this as a chart of Mr. Depp's Q scores from winter 2012 through summer of 2021?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to question the Q scores that are shown in this chart?
Like I said in my deposition, I have not received the actual data to build this chart, but I don't have any reason to not believe that this is accurate.
As I understand it, Q scores are performed on a celebrity like Mr. Depp twice a year, correct?
Yes.
So there's winter of a particular year, and then there's summer of a particular year?
Yes.
And the winter scores come out around February, is that right?
I don't have that information in front of me, but it sounds right.
And so would you know when the summer scores come out?
I don't.
Okay. And this chart shows, well, permission to publish this chart as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
Any objection?
I don't think this witness has laid an appropriate foundation for it, Your Honor.
He said he has no reason to question the Q scores.
I'll allow it as a demonstrative. That's fine.
And so this chart shows Mr. Depp's positive and negative Q scores, correct?
Correct.
And the positive Q scores are in blue.
That's correct.
Can you blow it up a little bit, Michelle? And the negative Q scores are in red?
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, may we approach for a moment?
Yes.
Mr. Bania, the positive Q score for Mr. Depp in the winter of 2012 is 42, correct?
It's in between, yeah, it's in between 40 and 45.
Okay. And did you check the actual Q scores that Mr. Jacobs demonstrated in his report?
No, my analysis was a snapshot of time. I wanted to know Johnny Depp's Q scores directly before the 2012 allegations, the 2016 allegations of abuse, and after.
Okay. And you see here that the positive Q scores for Mr. Depp dropped from 42 in the winter of 2012 to 35 in the summer of 2016, correct?
Yes,
That's a 7-point drop, correct?
yes,
And that's before Ms. Heard had her divorce filing, correct?
that's correct.
And that drop in Mr. Depp's positive Q scores could have nothing to do with Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And that drop could have nothing to do with the allegations Ms. Heard made after the divorce filing, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that the positive Q scores actually start to show an increase for Mr. Depp after the op-ed? There's a decrease and then there's an increase?
Yep.
And the same for the negative Depp Q scores. There's a bit of a positive, and then it goes down, correct?
Yes.
So really, the op-ed had no effect on Mr. Depp's Q scores, correct?
As I mentioned, my analysis looked at the snapshot of time, and it shows that he was harmed, from before the allegations of abuse in 16 to after the op-ed in 2018.
You looked at 3 Q scores, and you could have looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I won't even count the 2021 scores. 18 Q scores, correct?
Yep,
Okay. And you looked at 3, right?
that's correct.
And that's what you're basing your opinion on, that the op-ed damaged Mr. Depp's Q scores?
Yeah, so what we need to
That's my
understand is
que-
Q scores
my question is a
do
yes or
go
no.
up
Your
and
counsel
down.
can come back and ask
what
you
I
whatever you
wanted
want.
to do
Your
is
Honor.
I wanted to
Sir,
analyze.
sir, if you could just answer his yes or no
Oh,
question.
sorry.
That's fine.
I didn't hear your question.
You looked at 3 Q scores instead of 18 Q scores, correct?
That's correct.
And did you look at the Q scores at all after the Dan Wooten article that came out in April of 2018?
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
I don't think I asked that.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
No.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Mr. Bania, on cross-examination, you were asked some questions about the fact that you made a determination about which of these articles had a negative connotation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is that something that you do in situations other than in your analysis in this case?
Yeah. So in non-litigation, when we're building brand monetization strategies, and especially if you're going to work with a celebrity or an athlete, you want to look at what's going on out there, about that personality. Because celebrities and athletes, Q scores can go up and down. You want to analyze the time and see what's going on out in the media. Do I really want my client to license in a celebrity that there's problems out there, or an athlete? So yes, it's important to look at this.
And I believe you were asked whether you're offering an opinion in this case about the impact of the op-ed on Mr. Depp's public image. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that you are offering an opinion on that. Is that right?
Yes.
What's that opinion?
Well, the opinion is that he's portrayed in a negative connotation after that date.
And with respect to the Q scores that you analyzed, Mr. Nadelhaft was asking you about the 3 points in time that you looked at. Why, in your opinion, was it appropriate to look at just those 3 Q scores?
Yeah, as I was trying to explain, Q scores do go up and down. We're analyzing a period of time. We want to see what's happening right before an event, during that event, and if there's another event after that event. And that is our area of analysis. So that's why just these 3 sets of Q scores are the appropriate way to analyze this.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
He is, Your Honor.
All right, sir, do not discuss your testimony with anybody since you are subject to recall, but since you are an expert, you are allowed to stay in the courtroom if you wish, okay?
Okay,
All right,
thank you,
you,
Your
sir. All right, you can step down.
Okay.